Good evening. Tonight, we stand at the edge of a pivotal moment in American history, one that could reshape not only our economy, but the very balance of power in our government. The world is watching as the U.S. Supreme Court prepares to issue a landmark ruling on President Trump's sweeping tariffs, a decision that has sent shockwaves through financial markets from New York to Tokyo. This is far more than a legal dispute. It's an economic earthquake in the making, with the potential to disrupt global supply chains, unsettle investors, and alter the course of international trade for years to come. The Supreme Court's decision will not only determine the fate of these tariffs, but will also test the limits of presidential authority, influence the livelihoods of millions, and set a precedent for how America engages with the world. At the heart of the case lies a fundamental question: did the president overstep constitutional boundaries by invoking emergency powers to launch a trade war in 2025, bypassing Congress and traditional checks and balances? The tariffs, initially designed to shield American industries from foreign competition, have instead sparked global retaliation, disrupted supply chains, and led to higher prices for everyday goods at home, from groceries to electronics. The case, Learning Resources, Inc. v. Trump, could result in billions of dollars in refunds for U.S. companies hit hardest by the tariffs. Or it could cement a new era of expanded executive authority, changing the way future presidents wield power over trade. For families struggling with rising costs, farmers facing shrinking export markets, and small business owners worried about their bottom line, the effects of this decision are immediate and deeply personal. As financial analysts pore over market data and world leaders await the outcome, the global community braces for a verdict that will not only impact today's economy, but will also set the course of American policy for decades to come. The stakes could not be higher. The Supreme Court's decision will echo far beyond the marble halls of justice, shaping the future of American democracy, the global economy, and the lives of millions around the world. To truly grasp the roots of today's economic crisis, we need to turn back the clock to the beginning of 2025, a year that would soon become a turning point in global trade history. The world was still reeling from the aftershocks of the pandemic and ongoing geopolitical tensions, but few could have predicted the seismic shift that was about to unfold. In January, President Trump returned to the White House, and almost immediately his administration launched a sweeping global tariff blitz. The move was announced with great fanfare, dominating headlines and sending shockwaves through financial markets and diplomatic circles alike. Citing the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, the administration declared that chronic trade deficits and what it called unfair foreign practices posed a grave national emergency. This legal maneuver gave the president broad authority to impose tariffs without waiting for Congress. Tariffs were slapped on nearly every major U.S. trading partner, from Europe to Asia to the Americas. Almost overnight, supply chains that had taken decades to build were thrown into chaos. U.S. companies faced higher costs for imported parts and materials, forcing many to slow production or raise prices. America's closest allies, including the European Union, Canada, and China, didn't sit idly by. They retaliated with tariffs of their own, targeting iconic American exports, everything from soybeans and whiskey to motorcycles and electronics. The tit-for-tat measures escalated tensions and threatened jobs across multiple industries. The Trump administration insisted that this economic shock therapy was necessary. They argued it would force trading partners to the negotiating table, secure better deals for American workers, and ultimately revive U.S. manufacturing, which had been in decline for years. But as the trade gap began to narrow, a fierce debate erupted in Washington and beyond. Critics questioned whether the president truly had the constitutional authority to wage such a sweeping trade war without explicit approval from Congress. Legal scholars and lawmakers clashed over the limits of executive power. The legal and economic fallout was swift and dramatic. Stock markets tumbled, businesses scrambled to adapt, and lawsuits challenging the administration's actions piled up in federal courts. Across the country, small businesses struggled to stay afloat as costs soared. Consumers felt the pinch at the checkout line, with prices rising on everyday goods. Uncertainty gripped both Wall Street and Main Street as the world braced for a new era of economic instability. With the nation divided and the stakes higher than ever, the stage was set for a historic legal showdown that would determine the future of American trade policy. American businesses quickly challenged the tariffs in court, arguing the president had overreached under IEEPA. Lower courts agreed, ruling the administration failed to prove a true national emergency. The White House appealed, and the Supreme Court took up Learning Resources, Inc. v. Trump, a case that would define the limits of executive power. Supporters say presidents need flexibility to protect national interests. Critics warn unchecked authority sidelines Congress and sets a dangerous precedent. The justices now face a fundamental question: how far can a president go in shaping the economy without Congress? The answer will reshape the balance of power in Washington and America's role in global trade. The stakes extend far beyond tariffs. The outcome could redefine the very structure of American government. The Supreme Court heard arguments in November, with justices skeptical of the administration's broad use of emergency powers. Since then, the court's silence has fueled market anxiety and left businesses in limbo. President Trump has taken to social media, warning that a loss would be catastrophic for America. The case has become a public referendum on his America First agenda. Meanwhile, Congress debates the limits of presidential authority in both trade and foreign policy. The tariff case is now a flashpoint in the ongoing struggle between the White House and Capitol Hill. The world waits, knowing the decision will reverberate far beyond Washington. The numbers are staggering: $264 billion in tariffs collected in 2025 alone, with costs passed to American consumers and businesses. The trade deficit shrank to its lowest since 2009, but at the cost of disrupted supply chains and strained global relationships. China, a main target, adapted by shifting exports elsewhere, hitting record surpluses and showing the limits of U.S. leverage. The administration doubled down, announcing new tariffs on countries trading with Iran and on advanced semiconductors, citing national security. For companies, the constant policy shifts mean uncertainty and risk. The tariff strategy has reshaped global trade, but not always in America's favor. The world's economic order is in flux. The Supreme Court's ruling could either entrench this volatility or force a new approach. The stakes are global and the consequences immediate. Around the world, countries are adapting to U.S. unpredictability by forging new alliances and diversifying trade. The EU struck a major deal with Mercosur and negotiated minimum import prices with China, protecting its industries without all-out tariff wars. Europe is charting its own course, independent of Washington. Meanwhile, the US and Taiwan reached a deal: lower tariffs in exchange for massive Taiwanese investment in American semiconductor plants. Nations are no longer waiting for US leadership. They're building new partnerships and hedging against American volatility. The era of US dominance in global trade is fading. Countries are recalibrating, creating a more multipolar economic world. Whether this brings stability or fragmentation remains to be seen. The global response is clear: adapt, diversify, and prepare for a new era. The rules of trade are being rewritten in real time. Beyond politics and numbers, the tariff war hits real people. It's not just a matter of policy or economic theory. These decisions ripple through the daily lives of families, workers, and business owners across the country. American consumers face higher prices on everyday goods, straining household budgets. From groceries to electronics, the cost of living inches upward, forcing families to make difficult choices about what they can afford. Businesses reliant on imports see costs soar, forcing tough choices: absorb losses, raise prices, or move operations abroad. For many small and medium-sized companies, these decisions can mean the difference between survival and closure. Thousands of companies, like Costco, have paid billions in tariffs under protest, hoping for refunds if the court rules in their favor. The uncertainty leaves them in limbo, unable to plan for the future or invest in growth. A win could mean a financial lifeline. A loss cements higher costs. For some, it's the difference between hiring new workers or laying off staff, expanding operations or shutting down for good. Farmers and workers worldwide are caught in the crossfire, like Iowa soybean growers losing Chinese markets, watching their harvests pile up with nowhere to go, and facing an uncertain future. Or German auto workers facing layoffs as demand drops and factories slow production, their livelihoods hanging in the balance. The ripple effects are global, with no clear winners. Supply chains stretch across continents, and a single policy change can disrupt industries from Asia to Europe to the Americas. The legal gamble is high stakes for companies and livelihoods alike. Every court date, every headline, brings new waves of anxiety for those whose futures depend on the outcome. In a connected world, a trade war's pain is widely shared. No community is truly isolated from the consequences, as jobs, prices, and opportunities are all intertwined. The Supreme Court's decision will determine who bears the cost. It's a pivotal moment, not just for corporations, but for millions of ordinary people. For many, the wait is agonizing. The stakes are personal, the impact profound, and the outcome will shape lives for years to come. As the world waits, experts warn that even a Supreme Court rebuke won't end the turmoil. The administration could seek new legal grounds for tariffs, shifting the battle to Congress or the courts. Sudden tariff removal could spark market chaos, supply chain shocks, and a flood of imports, hurting some U.S. industries. Refunding billions to companies would be a massive administrative challenge. Yet, a ruling limiting presidential power could restore predictability and encourage global cooperation. The decision is a turning point, not an endpoint. Governments and businesses must adapt to a new, uncertain landscape. The world's next moves will shape the future of trade. We stand at a crossroads. The Supreme Court's decision on the Trump tariffs will set the tone for the next era of global commerce. Upholding the tariffs cements executive power and ongoing volatility. Striking them down reasserts Congress and a rules-based order. The world has already changed. Nations and companies have adapted. Alliances have shifted. The real question: will disruption lead to fragmentation or a more resilient global system? The court's ruling will define the rules of engagement for years to come. The consequences are shared by all of us. What path should America and the world choose next?